from a young age, I've endeavored to follow my intuition, even if it didn't make sense. And even when people thought I was crazy. And because I've done that, and when I haven't done that is when shit hits the fan and doesn't work out. And so maybe also having enough pain of not doing that and being betrayed and, you know, things falling apart. And so when I've done that, the more I've done that, even if it didn't make sense in the moment, when things came around and then clicked, I would go, oh, this is why I felt that feeling. And so that gave me more and more and more courage, I would say, to follow the invisible, intangible, intuitive sense without needing to question it, without needing to understand it. I think one of the things we have to give up around intuition is the need to constantly understand everything. The mind constantly wants to understand, well, what does this mean? And how does it mean? And we don't realize that the mechanism that often tries to even understand, our intuition is beyond that logic. Our intuition is beyond that understanding. I think we all have the same intuitive capacity, but because of conditioning, pain, trauma, hurt, childhood conditioning, stuff we went through, we may have shut down part of that access, shut down part of that opening, that connection, but it's there. We all have it. We all are intuitive. Some people say, oh, that person's so psychic. Well, so are you, so are you, so we all, as children, we feel. Before the process of getting so conditioned, we feel. And so one of the things that has helped me is giving up the need to constantly understand what everything means, because often the mechanism that tries to make sense of what does this mean? What does it turn left? Why am I going to turn left? Why call that person? Well, you know, before, you know, we talk ourselves out of it, but also the mind, which is conditioned from the past, will often interpret intuition in a completely opposite way. And so I think part of it is the willingness to allow things to not make sense to the mind and trust and follow it, because I think intuition arises from a deeper part of us. It arises from that unconditioned part of us that has a different feeling than analysis and thinking and even emotion. And so when we follow that, I think our intuition has an intelligence. And so I've just followed it enough to see like, wow, I had no idea where this was going, but it ended up somewhere pretty freaking amazing. That's how I bought my land in Joshua Tree. Following an intuition, 40 acres, right? Following an intuition and never having been there in 2014, 15. And one thing led to the next thing. Nope. I didn't go into it with an intention. I'm going to buy land in this middle of nowhere where I've never been before, and what am I going to do there? And I just followed it, which led me to an architect, which led me to his real estate agent, which led me to and I looked at everything, for example, and I'm just following my intuition. He showed me all of this land. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna, what am I gonna move here to Joshua Tree? What the hell? You know, I'm a city guy. And right before I was about to go home, he said, there's this one piece of land, there's 40 acres. I should just take a look on our way home. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell do I need 40 acres? The moment I went on it, I stood on the land. I felt that feeling, you know, that inch, like, oh shit, like, this is calling me. Like, it makes no sense, but it's calling me. And so for me, it's always been trusting that feeling, trusting that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, how do you know when you're in love? You just know, you know, like you just know. And people will ask me like, well, how do you trust it? And I'm always like, well, at a certain point, you just decide to like take the leap, and then you get enough evidence that every time you do follow that bit, it works itself out.
Yeah.
And I have always been someone who, my life doesn't make sense to anybody.
Oh,
Everybody's like,
I love
why are you doing that? Because I've always just kind of listened to my intuition. And I think this conversation around intuition and courage is really interesting, because sometimes I will make decisions and people will say, wow, I can't believe you did that. That was so brave. And I'm like, it didn't feel like courage to me though, because it doesn't actually feel, I mean, there is technically a choice, but for me, when I'm tuning into my intuition and feeling the intensity of that, like in my body and just that knowing, it's not a real choice. Like I'm not going to choose the thing that would be betraying this inner knowing within me. So it doesn't feel like it actively requires courage for me, because it's like, there really is no other way. I have to follow this. I just know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you know, you cannot follow it, but it ends up being painful and taking a lot of energy, which some of us often do, right? Which is when we do that, life doesn't flow. And I think that's why for many of us, life doesn't flow or stays stagnant or gets blocked, or because, to me, it's kind of like life has an intelligence. It has a frequency. It has an intelligence. And it's like have you ever seen a river that it doesn't look like it's moving, but it's moving in a kind of direction very gently. When you look closely, you see that it's kind of moving. And so I think the energy of life, if we really let go of preconceived ideas of what we think it should be, you can kind of feel where the flow is moving. You can kind of feel like the flow is moving here. And I think when we can follow that flow, as you're saying, life flows, nature flows, nature supports us, and then we end up allowing life to lead us. And I think that's a key point to, like, what would it be like to let life lead you rather than your mind, rather than your ego, rather than your personality, because the mind can't see the total picture, So I think we have to be willing to embrace the unknown. Because here's the thing, the mind is always trying to figure everything out. And we're constantly trying to know what everything means, what everything is. And even when we think we know, many times we just had the illusion of knowing, we really didn't. Like, we think, I met my soulmate, this is the person. And it turned out not to be. And we were so sure in that moment. And we thought we knew, but it really wasn't. It was just a necessary learning in the evolution of our souls in this lifetime. And so I tell people, don't be so attached to thinking that you know what something is and isn't, and embrace the unknown. And the degree to which you can embrace the unknown and live in the unknown is the degree to which you will experience freedom. And then you're really open to allowing life, this intelligence of life that has been around for billions and billions and billions of years, that is functioning, me, you, the stars, all of existence, then we can allow life to manifest and show us and function and reveal itself and guide us. So I really believe that we don't have to know where we're going in order to get to exactly where we need to be. And then we actually don't put limitations on life. Like, this is what this is, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what this relationship is, versus like true openness, committing when necessary, but saying, I'm open, I'm available, I'm kind of curious where this decision is going to lead me, And so, like you, many times I've been in a moment where something tells me, turn left, go here, go there. People will say, why are you going there? I have no freaking idea. And they're like, really? I said, I have no idea. All I know is this guidance is telling me to go in that direction, And so I think then we're open to infinite possibilities and miracles happening, because we're no longer limited to our mind's projection. And the mind can only project into the future based on the past, based on experience. And so when we live in that openness, it doesn't mean sit there and do nothing. It means, as you're saying, follow your guidance, take the action, go in the direction, make that phone call, take the action in the direction that you feel called, but you're not limited to a past idea or thought or experience.